2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Last week's show, we presented a history of healthcare presented by the physicians, Granite State Physicians for Healthcare. I learned in that one that it was the women's suffrage movement that actually started healthcare insurance. They pulled their money together because when someone got sick, they weren't able to buy food or pay rent. So they started pulling their funds together so that when that happened to one of their members, that they would take the money from the bank from being saved and not suffer the consequences of not being able to eat or not being able to pay their rent. The second part we're going to start now continues on with the history, and it takes it one step further. It compares all the candidates' positions on healthcare. And it's pretty interesting. Basically, it boils down to three types: improve what we have, a public option of some nature or another, or a Medicare for all option. And it takes a look at each one of those types. I hope you enjoy, and run the clip.
The mantra of our campaign is not me, but us. And the reason for that is not just that it sounds like a good bumper sticker. The reason for that is that's the simple truth. No president, no matter how well-intentioned or honest he or she may be, can do it alone. So I'm going to tell you what very few people will tell you, is that the power of Wall Street, the power of the fossil fuel industry who lies to us every day about climate change, the power of the insurance companies, of the pharmaceutical companies, of the military-industrial complex, that power is so great that the only way we defeat it is when millions of people, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, immigrant and native born, unless we come together and say to Trump that those days of hatred and divisiveness is over, we're going to bring our country together to fight for an agenda that works for all of us and not just the people on top. Thank you very much.
Can you remind me how much time we have?
Oh, you're right.
Okay, so
Just a quick note, folks, we are going to start the next session about 10 minutes later for the transition, so that you'll have plenty of time for those workshops.
so who knew that healthcare could be so complicated? It isn't a moonshot, I agree, but there are a lot of moving parts. And as we talk about the different proposals, I want you to keep in mind the big parts. So these are the things to look for. The first is, how is the healthcare delivered? Does the plan define how it is delivered? Who are the providers? Doctors, nurse practitioners, are they the hospitals? Look for that. The second thing is, how is it paid? What is the role for commercial, for-profit insurance companies? What is the role for non-profit insurance companies or insurance companies that are regulated? What is the role for state funding? What is the role for federal funding? And how much is self-pay? How is it delivered? How is it paid? And then the third big piece is, how is it managed? Who runs the system? Currently, the system is a marketplace. Is it still going to be a marketplace? Will there be health commissions, such as in Vermont, the Green Mountain Care Board? Is government going to run it? Will pharmacy benefit managers run it? And so when you think about these issues, you have to think about issues of trust, because this is a complex problem. And as the presidential candidates come by, you have to decide who you trust to get it right. So when you look at the people who are sponsoring these bills, the ones that are in your packet, ask yourself, What is their knowledge base? Who advises them? Who are their health policy advisors, and where do they come from? Who donates money to them? Shall I repeat that one? Who donates money to them? And how have they voted in the past? And the reason this is important is because now how many candidates are there? Okay, 20? Can't count them. They all say universal health care. I like Medicare for all or something. The devil is in the details, and at some point you're going to have to trust these people to get the details right. So the things that I look for as we're about to look through the plans. Number one, is the plan fair? Healthcare, my friends, is a right. It is not a privilege. Okay? Is the plan fair? Does it cover everybody? Everybody in, nobody out. Is it related to age? Does it cover people from all socioeconomic brackets? The second thing, does it cover all essential services, and this must include reproductive services for all, and it must include long-term care for the elderly. Is it fair? Does it cover all essential services? Number three, roles for the insurance companies. The insurance companies must either be gone, or they have to be very sharply regulated and controlled, as they are in Switzerland and Germany. Because once they get their nose under the tent, the rest of the camel will follow. Pharmaceutical companies must negotiate prices. They must not be in charge. And finally, the one that is often left off of the list of musts is that hospitals must have global budgets. And this is a detail that policy wonks keep off of the list, but I urge you to look for this. Our fire departments, our educational, our schools, we do not do this as a pay-as-you-go. They submit a budget, we vote on it, and then they must provide the services and the care within those limits. There must be global budgeting for hospitals. Those are the 5 areas that I urge you to pay close attention to these plans. Fair, cover all essential services, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and hospitals must have global budgets. In sum, what makes our healthcare remarkable in the world, and the reason that people can get away with saying that it is the best healthcare in the world, is because, probably, we think, because the innovation that is stimulated by private delivery systems. We have wonderful delivery systems. We have wonderful nurse practitioners, physical therapists, doctors. And we must have public funding. Private delivery, public funding. Look for it in these plans. Now, does everybody have that how many pages? 8 pages. Okay, open it up. We're going to go. No, we're not. The thing to ask as you look at the plans, the only one that I think of as being Medicare for all is the last one that Xandra put up, which is single payer. That is truly Medicare for all. The other ones, either the public option, and there are a number of bills, the Merkley bill, the Schakowsky bill, which is Healthcare for America. Those are and this may be politically better, Medicare for some, not Medicare for all. People 65 and older will still automatically get Medicare, will be eligible for it. People under the age of 65 will have the option of buying into Medicare at a controlled premium rate. There are other Medicare options which simply lower the age of eligibility, which, to my way of thinking, is a good way of transitioning. I think we probably could do it like that. But if you must transition, go from 65 to 50, and then from 50 to 26, and then you got them all. Okay? The Medicaid public option introduces a level of confusion because Medicaid is, as you all probably know, a combined match program between the states and the federal government. And so then if you buy in to Medicaid on a state-by-state basis, then you've introduced 50 new insurance programs that the federal government is sponsoring. Almost all of the different plans, and you can look at the details, are either Medicare for all, Medicare for some, or stupid. Reject the stupid, look at the Medicare for some, and see if you think, and I'm not a politician, I do not know, as many of you do, about political expediency. When I go down to testify in Concord, and I've also had the opportunity to testify in Washington, I don't know how the sausage is made, and I find it to be upsetting. But if you're going to vote, promote for everybody, what a mess. But a single-payer system, I personally believe is the way to go, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Tim's going to come around to the microphone, but as he's making his way over, I do want to ask just one question to kind of kick us off, and that is, there's going to be a lot of pushback, obviously, from those who are opposed to healthcare in general. But the biggest one that we hear from people all over the political spectrum and ideology is the cost around some of the healthcare options. So I just want to ask you both to comment on that briefly.
See if I can get this working. So, any of these proposals in front of you are going to be disruptive to this 1/6 of the U.S. economy. Any of them. Any proposals that will be instituting regulation or change in our current system will improve our current costs at will design. The problem is in the pudding, how you're designing it. So in terms of what you'll hear is that, oh no, this is too, you're not going to find your doctor. It's hard to find a primary care doctor today. What you're currently seeing in terms of costs, that exploding exponential rise in costs, is not just because of lack of regulation per se. It's because of something we call pricing failure. That is, there is negotiations that are happening behind closed doors. They're opaque. They're often happening between your insurer, the pharmaceutical industry, and the pharmaceutical benefit manager. There's a lot of negotiation that's happening. It's just you're just not aware of it, and it's feeding into profit. So we have huge costs. We saw on the slides how we compare to the rest of the world per capita. And this is not based on age of our population, by the way, or morbidity of the people who are recovering. It's based on our current system. So when you hear, oh, it's going to cost $32 trillion in a decade, guess what? You save $2 trillion by changing to that system versus using what we have right now. And the more important issue is Americans will be paying less money for higher quality care for individuals. People who will not be doing as well are CEOs, are making huge profits because the system is geared towards profit. So that is the reality when you hear issues raised about cost.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation that both of you just made. I spent 17 years in Germany. I went there as a minor, and I left when I was married and working in Germany with a family of 2 children. So I went through the healthcare system in Germany for 17 years at different levels. And I want to tell you that I got high quality healthcare, I got affordable healthcare, and just one comment about the cost. When you put up the cost initially, what we're paying, I assume that that cost does not include long-term care, which we don't have in this country, which the other countries have, and it doesn't include the additional costs that we have on our medical riders on our home insurance and car insurance. Those are things unthinkable in Europe. People don't even think of that because that's all included in that price that you just quoted. So you should make sure you include the cost of long-term care and the other riders on our healthcare system to show the real cost. So no, that was the one comment. Then, in order to just underscore what Germany and other countries do, is they use a market-based system too. Some of them are run by the government, but most of them, like Germany, are market-based. And the way they do that is they say, number one, by law, everyone has to have health insurance. You have to be in the system. You cannot be employed, you cannot hire anybody who's not in the system, period. Number two, it's regulated like a utility. They say healthcare is like water and services, they have to be regulated, and they are regulated, and despite that, doctors like you in Germany are driving Mercedes, nonetheless. So that's what they do. Number three, they manage their cost. So every year there's a healthcare council in Germany gets together and says, what's the basic package that has to be provided, and how can we provide it in an affordable way? And that's modified every year. And finally, affordability. They don't say what the premium is, they say how much % of your income are you allowed to pay for that? And in Germany, it's about 7% that you have to pay, and your employer has to kick it in, but you are the owner of your healthcare insurance and not your business. But that's how they manage to do this. So it's not nothing you can win a Nobel Prize for discovering anymore. It's been done.
I would just like to make a brief pitch. My name is Adrian George. I belong to Rights and Democracy. In July 13th, there's going to be a Medicare for All public forum. It's going to be held at St. Anselm's Institute of Politics. And our main speaker, Robert Molly from the Political Economy Research Institute, just came out with a very detailed study of the economics of Medicare for All. He will answer a lot of the questions that were alluded to, but in great detail. And also Michael Leahy, who's the former National Nurses United president, will also be there. Anyway, I really encourage you to come to that forum.
I'm actually going to pose a question, and I'm just going to put it out there, unless you want to answer or anybody from the audience. But how many people here were part of the Affordable Care Act, right? Raise your hand. Oh, more of you helped with the Affordable Care Act. Raise your hand. How many were here for the Clinton healthcare fight? I just want to ask us to think about, as we're trying to figure out kind of where we each go and how we use this presidential primary season, what were the biggest challenges you felt like we had during those fights? Because, we all in this room agree about the concept and goal of around universal health care. The reality is when the rubber hits the road out on the field, and thank you for bringing up the forum, because that'll help folks who want to pursue that policy be able to talk a little bit about it more. But the reality is we're going to face a lot of opposition, and the opposition hasn't geared up yet. So while we take Bob's question, I just want folks to think about what are some of the learning lessons that you think we have from the Clinton years, from the ACA fight, that you want to make sure that we're prepared for going forward?
of the concerns I have is the accessibility of the present healthcare system. If you're poor, you don't have access and you die. If you're rich, you get lots of money and lots of care and maybe you're rich. But the Medicare for all is the one way to equalize that equation. But I want to put something else on you. Presently, there are all kinds of people and all kinds of ideas to run this system. I think it's a system that it should be run by medically trained people, doctors, physicians assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, nursing assistants. All of these people make up the healthcare personnel. They should be the ones running the system, not the insurance people or for-profit system. Because I do not believe that we need to profit on human life. Your counsel.
Thank you, Bob. It's interesting why Medicare for all, and Dr. Colliston alluded to this versus Medicaid for all. Was, why not one versus the other? Apart from the fact that Medicare is transportable from state to state. It's a universal system for all Americans, but it's also universal for all Americans at a certain age. It's not based on what your income was, what you did for a living, whether you were a veteran or not, or whether you were a CEO, who knows what. It was felt that all Americans are not of other natures. Medicare has its historical roots with Social Security. So who here wants to have their Social Security? That's part of being an American. It's an institutional process. So when you hear people, and I hear it today, I hear it in Congress. I hear congressmen say, keep your government hands off my Medicare. That's bizarre, but we'll hear it. And so I think your points about what the intent is of a particular plan, who is organizing it, who is supporting those hospitals that are going under in rural areas and allowing other hospitals to flourish on their own. There's so many issues about the need for government intervention. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Murray. If everybody's talking already. I'm also a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed late in life and everything else. So there's been a lot of media coverage, especially lately, about the high cost of insulin. But what isn't discussed is the high cost of managing your diabetes in other ways. I have to provide for supplies for my insulin pump, needles, test strips, all of those things. Where does that fit into a single-payer system as well? I'm not old enough to get into Medicaid, so I don't know how the coverage is. My medical insurance is pretty decent. I spend probably $400 every quarter just on insulin and supplies, which is really, really good comparatively. But where does that system fit in with people like me? Because it's not just the prescription drugs that I'm worried about. It's the other costs that I have to deal with.
Thanks. So the way things stand currently is that if you are on Medicare and all you have is Medicare, then you have to pay for all that on your own. Medicare for all, which I think most of the policy people call improved Medicare for all, would include all essential medications and supplies. So it would be somewhat similar to those of you who have Medicare A and B and D, which covers most drugs and supplies, but it would not have the so-called donut hole, which is this weird thing that happens to people who have Medicare Part D, where it covers up to a certain level and then pays nothing for $2,000 and then kicks back in. So the bottom line is Medicare for all would cover your supplies.
one more thing about glucometers and glucose testers, your test strips, it's pretty remarkable. When someone changes their job, they get a new insurance, you gotta start from scratch. So you learn how to use a glucometer, you've got all these supplies, you've got all the testing equipment. You have a new job, you have to start from scratch. I can't tell you how often that happens. If there's any delay in insurance, why is that happening? Because there is negotiation going on between the insurance company, the pharmaceutical benefit manager, the makers of these products, but it's not regulated. It's catch as catch can. It's profit directed. So no question, Dr. Keller said, we really do need to have these things covered under Medicare, and that will be in any of these plans. Actually, all of the plans in front of you, almost all of them, have an expansion in the benefits that are covered.
With that, I got the cue. I know we got a couple other questions. There's actually going to be a workshop, the last workshop block. Fine gentlemen will be participating in. So for those who have additional questions, you can find them throughout the afternoon or join that workshop block on the Medicare for All campaign at the end of the day. I'm just going to go back real quick and answer that question I posed a second ago as the former communications director from Hampshire for Healthcare. Which was the campaign that those purple healthcare voter stickers that were at presidential campaign events in 2004, 2008, and then got President Obama to commit to making healthcare a priority, and he did in his administration. I would just encourage folks to really spend some time, and I know it's wonky, but looking through these policy papers, take the advice of the gentleman up here about what types of things to look at in each of the proposals and what types of questions that you should be asking of presidential candidates, because we're in a really pivotal moment around healthcare where despite all of the opposition and all of the debate over which policy path to pursue, as was stated earlier, healthcare is the #1 issue on people's minds. We have an opportunity to take this swell of energy and really use it to improve our healthcare system. If we're prepared as advocates, and I've spent a lot of time in 2007, 2008, then through the implementation of the ACA, and then through the defense of ACA, which is ongoing, and trying to make sure that we had those answers, and so that we didn't get stumped when we were out in the field. Take one look at Americans for Prosperity and look at what they're talking about, and be prepared to answer those questions. So with that, I'm going to thank our panelists for their participation today.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that history presented by the doctors there. I thought it was really interesting. And we're going to be working on a couple other things in the coming weeks. We have a Dark Money show coming up, and we have a solar for municipalities and for residential units with Dan Weeks. So I hope you tune in and watch these shows that we'll be doing. Thank you, and have a good day, night.
Campaign finance is like the gateway issue to every other issue that you might care about, whether it be education or tax reform or foreign policy. Campaign finance is at the heart of all of the policy decisions that are being made.
You let big money use dark money and this curtain of secrecy to basically buy a legislature or buy a state, or eventually, ultimately, control public policy in this country.